Okay, in this section 7-4, the topic here is factoring polynomials part 2. So we will be building on the factoring lesson that we did from 7-3 and just looking at a couple of different situations from what we had looked at from last time. However, we do start off with the same examples just to kind of remind you of how to find the values of a, b, and c. Remember, the value of a is in front of my x squared. In this case, it's going to be a 1. The value of b is the coefficient of the x, which in this case is -2. And the value of c is this regular number, which happens to be -3 on this first example. And following to example 2, again, the coefficient of x squared is 1. That means the value of a is 1. The value of b here is 5, and the value of c here is 4. And once again, a review of the guidelines to help us factor correctly. We want to look at the coefficients first. So look at the regular numbers first and try to find the greatest common factor for them. Okay, a variable must be common to all terms, right? So if there's an x in one term, there's got to be an x in every term in order to factor an x out. And if a variable is common to all terms, then take the one with the smallest exponent. That should read smallest exponent. Okay. And then, of course, when you divide all the terms by the GCF, the remainder will stay in parentheses, and then you will have completed your factoring. All right, so here we're going to find the greatest common factor and then use that to actually factor the expression. All right, so on this one, let's kind of see what we've got here. So I've got regular numbers. Remember, check that first, coefficients first. I've got 4 and 20. The biggest number that we can divide out of 4 and 20 would be 4, so I'm going to write down the 4. Okay, there is no x in this term, so I cannot factor out any letters. So now I'm going to divide the greatest common factor into these two and see what we have left. 4x divided by 4 is just x, plus is my sign. 20 divided by 4 is going to be 5. So now we have factored the expression. I pulled a 4 out of here, and here's what we're left with. And like I say, you can always multiply this back out to double check that you've done it correctly. 4 times x, 4x. 4 times 5 is 20. And that brings us now to the next one. So let's look at the coefficients first. I have a 16 and I have a 24. So the biggest thing that can divide out of both of these at the same time would be an 8. Okay. Now, take a look at my letters. I've got an x squared and I've got an x. All right. Now, since there is an x common to both of these terms, I can pull an x out. How many? Well, this one is x squared. This one is x to the first power. What's our guideline say? If a variable is common to all terms, take the one with the smallest exponent, which is 1, so I can factor out an x. Okay? So now that we know what our greatest common factor is, 8x, I can open a set of parentheses, divide this out, and write in what is left. So 16 divided by 8 is going to be 2. And x squared divided by x is going to be x. One of the x's cancels out. One remains. Positive divided by a positive is a positive. 24 divided by 8, that is going to leave me with 3. And then, of course, my x will cancel. And so there's my answer right there. Double check. Make sure we did it correctly. 8 times 2 is 16. X times x is x squared. 8 times 3 is 24, and then times the x makes 24x. All right? So you can always check and see if you've factored something correctly by multiplying out the answer that you got. Okay, so now we have more practice in factoring trinomials. However, in this section, we get an opportunity to look at some different sign schemes here as far as the pluses and the minuses are concerned. It's going to factor the same way into a product of two binomials. Since we got x squared here, we know we're going to be x and x, so that hasn't changed anything. However, this time, what we're going to have is a situation where we've got a positive here, so I need either a positive times a positive or a negative times a negative. How do I know? I need to look right here at my middle term, and so I know I have a minus and a minus here. Okay, and so in order to complete the process now, I need two numbers that multiply together to give me 36, but at the same time, they combine together to make a 12. The two such numbers would be 6 and 6, and so that's what we get. Alright, so the next one that we want to look at also will factor into a product of two binomials. And once again, it starts off with x squared, so we know we're going to have an x and an x. Now, the sign that we have here is minus. And so this is kind of where it's going to be a little bit different from what we had on the other page and in the other lesson. So I have a negative here, so I know that my signs have to be plus and minus, because a positive times a negative is the only way in order to come up with the negative value here. So now what I need is I need two numbers to multiply together to give me 28. Okay, but at the same time they subtract to give me a 3. So I need two numbers to multiply to give me 28, but they subtract to make 3. Alright, so let's think about the factors of 28. What times what is 28? The first thing that comes to mind is 7 times 4, and then 7 minus 4 is 3x. So those will work. So now I need to decide whether my 7 should be with the plus or with the minus. Okay, so the number in the middle term is positive, so that means I need the biggest of the two numbers to be positive. So that means the 7 goes here and the 4 goes here. Double checking, 7 times negative 4 is negative 28. 7x minus 4x is 3x in the middle. So we're in good shape. All right. Okay, so now the next thing that we want to look at is number 12, which is here. And again, it's going to factor into a product of two binomials. I've got an x squared, so we'll start with x and x. And everything is positive here, so my signs are plus and plus. Now I need two numbers to multiply together to get 18, but at the same time they add together to make 11. So 18 is 6 times 3, but 6 plus 3 is 9, not 11, so that won't work. Let's try 9 and 2. 9 times 2 is 18, 9 plus 2 is 11. So I'm going to write in 9 and 2. And then so now we know that that is going to be the correct answer. All right. So moving on now to the next one, we'll have to go ahead and write in our set of parentheses here, factoring it into a product of two binomials. And so now taking a look at the first term, which is going to be an x squared, then that allows me to write in my x here and my x here, because I know that the first term has to be x times x, which will give me x squared. So these first two terms have to multiply together to give me this. Alright, so anytime it's an x squared like it has been throughout this entire lesson, we know I can go ahead and write x and x in here. Okay, so let's see if we can take a look at what our signs ought to be here next. And so I'm looking at the last number as 56, so I need my last two numbers to multiply together to give me a positive 56. So that can either be a negative times a negative or a positive times a positive. And how do I tell which one? Of course, I need to look at my middle number, which happens to be negative here, the middle term. So I know it's got to be minus and minus. So now from here, I need to think about, okay, I need two numbers to multiply together to give me 56, but at the same time, they subtract or combine is really what I should say, to make a negative 15 in the middle. So really, since both of these are negative, I need them to add up to 15 is really what I want. So two numbers that multiply to make 56, but add up to 15. That's what I'm looking for. So 8 times 7 comes to mind, and then 8 plus 7 is 15, so we're in good shape. We'll write in the 8 here. We'll write in the 7 here. And then, now to double check, negative times a negative is a positive. 8 times 7 is 56. But negative 8x minus 7x is negative 15x. And so now we know that we have done this one correctly. So now moving on to the last one, we'll go ahead and write in our product of two binomials there. Once again, the first term I have is x squared, so I know I'm going to just write in x and x is what we're going to have. Okay. Now, let's see if we can't get our signs correct. So getting our signs correct to finish it, I need two numbers to multiply together to give me a negative. So the only way that I can multiply two numbers together to get a negative is a positive times a negative, right? Now, since both of these blanks are the same, they're both x's, it doesn't matter which one I put where. However, if they were different, it would matter. So since they're not different, it doesn't matter, and we're good to go. So now to finish it, I need two numbers that multiply together to give me 32, but at the same time they combine, or in this case subtract together to give me 4. Multiply to make 32, but have a difference of 4. And so 32, 8 times, let's see, 8 times 4 comes to mind. And so 8 times 4 is 32. But at the same time, I need them to combine together to get 4, and they do. And of course, where should the 8 go? Since the middle number is positive, that means the biggest number has to be positive. So I'll put my 8 here, okay, and I will put my 4 here. And now just to double check to make sure that this is correct, I know my x times x is x squared. 8 times negative 4 is negative 32. But then when I go 8x minus 4x, I get 4x in the middle, which is correct. Remember, if you're still unsure, you can go and multiply this whole thing out, and then when you're done, you'll end up getting x squared plus 4x plus 32. Alright, so just to make sure, x times x, x squared, then x times negative 4 is negative 4x, and then slide over to take the 8. 8 times x is plus 8x. And then, of course, 8 times negative 4 is negative 32. But these two combine together, negative 4x plus 8x, to make 4x in the middle. And then so now we've verified that we have done it correctly. So we can use this now as a guideline to do our quiz for 7-4.